So, 435 miles is, as it turns out, an awful long way to go for a first date. And I would say my motivation was a mix of enthusiasm and a little desperation. 2 years on the market, and my experience of forming romantic connection had been like growing tomatoes in Colorado. It's not that you can't, you just may not be pleased with the outcome. I had had some memorable dates for all of the wrong reasons, but when I saw that they were only 4 miles away, I was like, ooh, okay. And then the conversation started to flow, and we talked about relationships and hopes and fears and dreams, and that doesn't usually happen, and I was intrigued. And then I opened the app 4 days later, and she was now 431 miles further away than they had originally been. But the attraction persisted, and so we got on the phone, we talked over video, and it was the funniest sensation of being so at ease and so comfortable and so squirmy. It's when connection is forming, but God, you just don't want to mess it up. And at the end of that call, I said, well, maybe I'll just have to come see you. And they said, maybe you will. And that's what I was thinking about when I pulled onto Route 36 out of Boulder, going to Placitas, New Mexico, which is 435 miles away. Now, for the first 2 hours, like audiobooks, podcasts, music, like I can just fill that car with noise and just kind of drown out my thoughts. But after a few hours, your thoughts start to win. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, this could go so wrong. And I'm staying at their house for several days. Like, that could be a nightmare. But at this point, I've said yes, and I'm driving. And so it's like, all right, we're going to do this. And I just feel this nervousness creeping in and creeping in. And around midday, I make it to Trinidad, Colorado, which is my halfway point. And I get out, I plug in my car to charge, and I walk toward the gas station / Wendy's / cannabis store, One Wonder. And then out of nowhere, I just hear, excuse me, may I ask you a question? Now, my mom is from Pensacola, Florida, which is the Panhandle, so like that accent isn't new. It just doesn't belong in Trinidad, Colorado. And I look up, and there is a cowboy who, I shit you not, has a piece of straw in his teeth, the hat, the belt buckle, the boots, the whole thing. And suddenly, my idea of a first impression changes dramatically, and I'm expecting conflict. I don't know who this gentleman voted for. I could guess. I don't know what he thinks of me, but I could guess, and I'm writing a story about why this is not going to go well. But I walk up, and he says, how you like that electric car? And we have a quick conversation. He asks a few questions. And then he catches me off guard because he said, you know, I could never do it. I love my truck. But I sure do appreciate you keeping the sky so blue. Right? And all of a sudden I was like, man, humanity's everywhere if we can just let our guard down for a little bit. I get back in the car. I drive the remaining 200 miles, and I would love to say that my interaction with Mr. Cowboy helped. It did not. Like, I was still freaking out the entire time. But I go past Santa Fe, and I get off of 25, and now I'm driving next to it, and the mountains there are different. They're like stacked stone, and you can see all the layers. And now it's late afternoon, so the sun is glowing, and like it looks like you're on Mars. The whole thing is red. And I turn up this hill, and I'm kind of winding through these houses, and I pull up to this driveway. And I get out of the car, and she walks out of the front door. And I pull her into the biggest hug. It's the kind where your fingers fall into their ribs, and it feels like that's where they were made to be. And my heart sunk because I knew immediately this would not be the last time I drove 435 miles. Fuck. I could tell you about those days and how they went, but I would much rather tell you that they're here with me tonight. And I'll let you fill in the details. Thank you.